Story 1. Absolutely. If that makes others uncomfortable, it's their problem, not mine. Respect is earned, not given based on blood relations. My family has done nothing to earn my respect. Story 2. I wouldn't want to change my family. However, I hope reincarnation is possible because I want to experience it again. Story 3. No, because I am not about to part with my uncle's macaroni and cheese. He makes the best macaroni and cheese on the planet. It is my duty to ensure his recipe stays in the family. Story 4. No, and I say this as a person who has experienced a lot of abuse, neglect, trauma, and dysfunction with my family. It's not because I feel some loyalty to them. It's because I've finally accepted that I wouldn't be where I am without those experiences. Would I meet my husband? Who would my children be? Would I be a worse parent without realizing how precious they are? Without knowing how not to treat them? What about my friends who mean more to me than family? My life is finally where I want it to be, and you will just have to pry it from my cold, dead hands. Story 5. Philosophically, it's simple, yes. I wouldn't know my real family and vice versa because the past would be erased. Who wouldn't want to win the birth lottery with a wealthy family headed by two well-adjusted parents with good genes? Story 6. My parents were physically and emotionally abusive. I was always envious of children who had typical parents. Story 7. I would love to know what it feels like to have a nurturing mother instead of the self-centered, unkind mother I have. Story 8. I think I would be a very different person. My mom sexualized me at a young age. My sisters and I were all her competitors. Anything I like or do, she mocks and belittles. She can be quite harsh. My dad left us with her when I was 5 to pursue a job in another state. I believe their actions have hindered my self-esteem, which affects my capabilities in life. Story 9. It's scary to think about taking risks, but I would do it. Maybe I could have been in a family where I wasn't antagonized all the time and where I would have received more encouragement in life. I had to tread carefully throughout my entire childhood. Story 10. I grew up with an alcoholic father. My immediate family fell apart after his death, and it still impacts my behavior in ways I never expected 3 decades later. I would spin the wheel. Story 11. My family is crazy but amazing. The love and understanding we all have for each other makes me the luckiest person. Story 12. I would not choose a different family because if I did, I might have never met my husband of 37 years. Story 13. No, you couldn't pay me enough to change. Nobody is perfect, but my family is perfect to me. Story 14. I wish I was part of a more supportive family. Mine is mostly dysfunctional, including myself. Story 15. I absolutely hate my dad. He was physically abusive throughout my childhood and into my teenage years. I also had a terrible stepmother and step-siblings. My mom passed away, so I never got to know her. I would still choose a new family. They don't have to be wealthy, just a normal, everyday mom and dad would be nice. Story 16. My family was difficult while I was growing up and still is. I would trade them for almost any other normal family. Story 17. A non-abusive, supportive family who wanted their children to be whole individuals and didn't just want babies or extensions of themselves. Story 18. I love my mother and father, and I am immensely grateful for having been blessed with them as my parents. They have their faults, but they have provided for me and supported me beyond reasonable expectations and continue to do so. Story 19. I would not change anything about my life. I was fortunate to be born into a loving family that provided sensible and fair discipline. My parents encouraged my interests, and my siblings were supportive and kind, each one a better person than I am. I vividly remember being surprised in college when so many people expressed hatred for their parents and siblings, claiming their families were terrible. I realize how lucky I am now, and I wouldn't change a thing. Story 20. There will be problems within every family. Yes, my dad had his issues and my mom had her psychological challenges, but I know she loved me. She wanted the best for me, despite her faults. I don't have the best relationship with my sister, but I know she cares for me. She is just another person who tries to do what she thinks is best, like everyone else. I could choose to complain about them for hours, and I could choose to live my life that way, but I would never wish for another family. They all had an impact on me, and I wouldn't be who I am without them. And guess what? I love myself. Of course, more money would have helped, but hey. Story 21. If I could keep my youngest half-sisters and my dad, yes. But otherwise, probably not. There is so much trauma. Story 22. I had a very traumatic and difficult childhood. My mother died when I was young, and my father is a narcissist. However, I have built a wonderful family of my own, and I wouldn't change my path for anything. Story 23. Definitely not. I had the sweetest, kindest, most patient mom ever, and I'm lucky she was mine. I miss that beautiful lady every day. Story 24. I am aware of my family's issues and benefits, and I appreciate how we are. It is not perfect by any means, but it is my family. Story 25. In my 20s, I would have jumped at the chance, but now, with a family of my own, I am finally happy with my life. Changing any of it might cost me my children and the love of my life. Story 26. Considering that my mother deliberately kept me away from my father and his family, I am curious to know what my life would have been like if my father had raised me instead of my mother. Story 27. Well, I could not have been born into a different family. If I had been raised by other parents, I would be a different person. Story 28. My family has had its issues, but we are all human. No matter what family it is, there will always be disagreements. My family has been through so much together, and my parents are some of my greatest supports in life. My older sisters have always taken care of me, even when I wasn't being the unreasonable youngest child. They taught me to be respectful and caring. I love to tell them that I could never get a better family than them. It's important to mention that we weren't always well off, and money has been an issue more than once, especially when my mom was in the hospital. However, my parents worked very hard to ensure we never felt the strain as kids. Now that we are all stable with our incomes, they are always happy to help when money is tight for us. Story 29. No, because I wouldn't be me anymore. Even if I were somehow the same essence or soul, different experiences would shape me into a different person. Despite all the struggles and the genetic predispositions to mental illness and neurodivergence, I like who I am. Story 30. It's not that bad, I guess, so I'd rather stay with my family than be born into one that didn't have a house. Story 31. No way, unless I was somehow born to my grandparents and my mom was my sister. That would be interesting. But still, no, because my dad wouldn't be my dad. Story 32. No, I would like to be reborn in my own family because I would do things for myself and the world at the same pace. Why not with my own family whom I love? Story 33. No, because the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. I don't know if it would be a worse situation or not. Story 34. Yes, but not because my family is bad. I would do it because if I were born into a different family, I would not be the person I am today, and I deeply dislike myself. I would do anything just to not be me. Story 35. My family is amazing, and I love them with all my heart. I would be devastated if I ever left them or if they left me. Story 36. Statistically, it could have been a lot worse. The United States is facing significant challenges right now, and I'm not particularly fond of my parents, but it's better than being born into a family in Rwanda or a similar situation. Most families in the world are worse off than I am, so I'm not taking that risk. Story 37. I would endure the rest of my family just to have been raised by my dad. He was the best. Story 38. There are more bad families than good ones. I have heard stories from other children, the news, and articles about the horrible things this world has to offer, so I'll be keeping my trauma. Thank you. My childhood was nowhere near perfect and was truly difficult a lot of the time, but I made it. I survived. I have a good life now, and if I went back and changed my childhood, it could be much worse, especially since I would not get to choose the family I go to, which no one does. I could not end up where I am right now, which has made my life worth it. So I'm good. I'll take this trauma and run with it. I know how to handle my own trauma. Story 39. No, we're not perfect. I guess it's all I know. It wasn't the worst, but it's character development, and I like them. Story 40. Sheer curiosity. I can't say I believe in any of the religious systems of life after death, but I do hope for reincarnation. I just wish they would let you remember some of it. It would be ideal if you could spend time in a collective lobby and pick some perks before going again, similar to a new Game Plus option. Story 41. No. While I certainly didn't have a privileged upbringing, I had good and loving parents and a happy childhood. Story 42. No, not at all. I'll be honest. I think I got very fortunate with my current family in nearly every aspect. Story 43. There's no guarantee it's going to be better. My family was dysfunctional and I've heard a lot, but they didn't abuse or torture me, so I don't want to take my chances. Honestly, just leave me be. I'm not going to take unnecessary risks. Story 44. No, I love my family and am incredibly grateful for the support over the years. I wouldn't have it any other way. I am sorry for those of you who had difficult upbringings, and I am sending good thoughts to you all. Story 45. Yes, I am interested in books, music, movies, theater, and travel. My family, on the other hand, does not share these interests as much. I am the youngest in my family, but I have always felt like an only child due to a significant age gap. As I got older, I was expected to travel to see them. If I need help, I don't call them. As in the past, their response made it clear that my reaching out was an inconvenience. I have purchased 2 homes completely on my own. I have offered a place to stay, a quick stop for a bathroom break while they drove through my town, and a ride to and from my house, but they were not interested. Clearly, I have trust issues and have fewer than a handful of friends. On the positive side, despite the size of my family, I save time and money during the holidays. Story 46. I had a great childhood. The only thing I would change is that I wish I had not been raised around so much anxiety because it has been detrimental in my adulthood. Story 47. Probably not. My family is messy, loud, and a little chaotic, but they made me who I am. I wouldn't trade that unique, stubborn love for anything. Story 48. Probably not, because I love who I am now. I wouldn't be the beautiful woman I am today without my family being unkind to me initially. I am still affected by the past, but their negative attitudes toward queer people motivated me to discover my true self. This journey led to my self-acceptance, realizing that I can love myself for who I am, and that I and others can be who we want to be, regardless of what others think. I wear my scars with pride instead of shame now. Story 49. I wonder sometimes who I could have become had I not been physically, verbally, and mentally abused by my mother from a young age. I am proud of the person I became despite the abuse, and I take pride in breaking the cycle of family abuse. However, I do wonder who I could have been if I had parents who loved and protected me. Story 50. I would like to experience living with another family in a time jump montage similar to the concept in It's a Wonderful Life. I love my family, but they are the most boring people in existence. I have often wondered what it would be like to live in a more structured home with parents who were more educated and willing to travel more. Story 51. Yes, I would have loved to be part of a family that wanted me, one without anger issues and codependency. I would have loved a mother who wasn't so obsessed with her own health that she was unable to love. I sat in no one's lap and received no affection. Despite my efforts to find self-worth, it still affects me, and I am 71. Story 52. Yes, I would have loved not to be abused and end up in foster care. I had to train myself to make eye contact for years, work to overcome a stutter that I still occasionally have, and deal with the discomfort of being close to anyone, often pushing them away. All of these challenges could have been avoided. Story 53. If I could choose my family, I would. If not, that is fine. I do not love my family, but I understand it could be worse. Story 54. I'm not sure. This has me thinking. I was born into a pretty dysfunctional family. I have 3 brothers. One is older, and we share the same mother but have different fathers. Then I have 2 younger brothers, who have the same father but different mothers. My father was adopted as well, but I know his biological father, though we are only friends on Facebook. My mother's parents are divorced and remarried, so I have two sets of grandparents on her side that I don't actually talk to because we can't agree on anything. My stepmother's mother isn't my biological grandmother, but she treats me like her own and has since I was 9, even though I don't associate with my stepmother. I actually don't talk to anyone in my family except my younger oldest brother and my mother, as my father passed away 3 years ago, and even then we weren't on good terms. Would I trade it in for another family? It's easy to say yes, especially when you see functional or even the comically dysfunctional families depicted in sitcoms. But I don't think so. I believe all of these people and experiences have held a special place in my heart and shaped who I am today. Apparently, I love to use quotations. Story 55. It feels like you're taking a huge gamble. Getting to choose is exciting. I have friends who are excellent parents, and other friends who had great parents. Additionally, the possibility of not having certain genetic traits would have been amazing. Story 56. Before I had my wife and child, I completely dismissed all fantasies of changing the past, as it might mean changing the present. As difficult as the past was, I love my life now. Story 57. I wish I had a sister or aunt to teach me about life. I had 8 brothers and was the only girl. It wasn't what everyone thought. I wasn't spoiled or even protected by them. It was quite the opposite. I was second to last in the family. My mother was overwhelmed by it all. She had already lost 2 children to polio long before I came along, so having more kids didn't help. I really wish I had someone there for me. Story 58. My parents were neglectful and didn't protect me when I needed it. My mother is so self-absorbed she can't think of anyone else. She always claimed to be prettier, thinner, smarter, and sexier than me in every way. Who says that to their child? Plus, it's not true. She was very overweight by the time she was in her mid-30s. Does she think I can't remember? My adopted father constantly spoke about all the sex workers he had enjoyed all over the globe. Everything was hypersexualized in our home. Additionally, she lied to me about who my birth father was and his relationship to her. She claimed she was assaulted and didn't know his name, but I found out she was in a 6-month relationship with him. I had to do DNA testing to track down his family to learn the truth. They have photos of her. He lived in the exact town where I was born. She definitely knew his name and address. She gave up a child at birth and gaslighted me about it for years. I found that sibling through DNA, proving that I had been gaslit. She initially told me about it, then denied ever saying it. When I went back to school and got my degree, she couldn't stop posting about how proud she was of my sibling because he landed a job. Not one word about my accomplishment or the job I had secured. I was proud of him too. It wasn't jealousy. Lastly, she never got my birthday right for 49 years. I haven't spoken to her in years. I wish I had never been born or born to parents who wanted me. Story 59. Nope. I absolutely adore my family and consider myself lucky. My parents are from the baby boomer generation, but thankfully, they are rational thinkers and do not hold many outdated beliefs such as sexism, financial insecurities, being single for an extended period, or pressuring me about having children. They acknowledge both the good and bad decisions I have made and allow me to live freely while providing guidance without judgment, offering constructive feedback. I was raised in a family without major issues like abuse or addiction, so I feel fortunate and always grateful. Genetically, I definitely hit the jackpot. My only health concerns are high cholesterol and high blood pressure, but I am fortunate to have athletic genetics and age gracefully due to my mixed Black and Asian heritage. Every family and individual has their own issues. Nothing was perfect in my family, and we went through difficult times, especially since my dad can be very grudge-holding. I view these questions as considering what an ideal family would look like while acknowledging that all families deal with drama and conflict. It is impossible to avoid, and sometimes realizing that things could be much worse during rough patches serves as a good reality check. All this being said, I completely understand those who have lived through extremely stressful situations, such as addiction or abuse. I totally empathize, and I would aspire to be free from those experiences if given the choice. Story 60. I wouldn't say reborn because I wouldn't exist. I would say I want my parents to have been better prepared in life and to have used more resources when learning to be parents. They could have gone to counseling before marriage, and when they found out they were having their first child, to be better equipped to deal with the emotions of all of us, including their own. I wish my mother had never given up on working and had continued to step up in her role at the company. I would have liked my parents to have arranged for us to have a tutor from time to time and to have taken us to a child psychiatrist for screening of developmental issues. I hope my dad had become vulnerable earlier in life and had the courage to show us his soft side, which he is beginning to reveal now at 67. Overall, I don't wish for a different family. For the most part, we were normal. We engaged in typical family activities within our circumstances, took a few vacations, enjoyed camping and road trips, celebrated holiday gatherings, and had regular birthdays. I just wish my parents had a little more support and resources and hadn't let their fear of the unknown regarding our differences and difficulties, or in their careers, cause emotional distress. Story 61. Absolutely not. Just like anyone, my parents have flaws. They are human like everyone else. However, they are the best parents I could ever dream of, and I am grateful for everything they have done. I understand that not everyone was as lucky, and it's valid if you feel differently. Story 62. No, I wouldn't. Despite my father not being present, I love my mom and sister, and I am so glad I have them. I would stay. Story 63. My family was unfair, illogical, noisy, demanding, useless, cruel, and abusive. They falsely accused and unjustly punished me. Story 64. My parents took great care of me until I became an adult. However, if given the chance, I would choose a non-religious family, or at least one that respects my decisions. Story 65. No, my parents were great. Being well off certainly didn't hurt, but they would have been wonderful no matter how much money we had. Story 66. On one hand, my family was chaotic. Not to a criminal degree, but many of the issues in my mind and emotional triggers stem from my family. It isn't a healthy dynamic, and as an adult, I have learned to limit what I can tolerate and be assertive enough to gain the upper hand in the power dynamic. A different, more supportive, and less combative family would be nice. On the other hand, I ended up doing fairly well, all things considered. I have a good education, a good job, a child, and I own my home, the American dream, essentially. Some of the challenges from my upbringing contributed to the work ethic and mindset that have brought me this success. But the question is different. Not better, just different. Given my upbringing, my perspective is that it could always be worse, so probably not. Story 67. I love my family. A random reroll is almost certainly worse in all respects, but I would probably still take this if it were a time travel situation where I could look like an impressive prodigy with an adult level of education and have prescient investment strategies. That's just too good to pass up. Especially since, if we are doing a global reroll, being a native-level fluent English speaker probably improves one's odds of eventually managing to emigrate back to a wealthy country even if born into a poor one. Once I was fantastically wealthy thanks to time travel, I would send my mom a thank you note and a couple of $1 million. This may seem like an insane thing to do, but when you are incredibly wealthy, who is going to stop you? Reacquiring my husband would also be an adventure, but I know where to find him within a reasonable time frame, and I am confident our compatibility is primarily personality-based. I think I could just show up in his life and say, "Hello, for crazy reasons. It has come to my attention that you are the best. Dinner date." And he would respond with something like, "Sure." Story 68. No way. After my husband and daughter, there is no one I have ever loved and admired more than my immediate family. I had a very happy, safe, and emotionally healthy childhood. Story 69. My family wasn't perfect, but it could have been much worse. I would probably end up worse off. Story 70. Absolutely, maybe this time there will be people who truly care about family and are not just cruel, heartless individuals. Story 71. Oh my goodness, no. I believe my greatest privilege is having been born into a loving family with wonderful parents. It's the biggest jackpot I've hit in life, and no amount of money or anything else could change that. Story 72. 1/3 of people globally face food insecurity. The only reason I would take that risk is if I were in a sexually abusive family or had already faced food insecurity. Story 73. I had a difficult time growing up financially. I would consider myself the luckiest if I could be reborn to my current parents. It's hard to explain, but I could never ask for more than the love, care, and protection they have given to me and my sister. They are truly selfless, and I'm learning so much from them as a father of a 6-year-old myself. Story 74. Yes, I thought about this long and hard, but yes, growing up, my family always had many issues, from money to my father. He was abusive, manipulative, drunk, and despised our family. My mother divorced him when I was 10, and he then became sober and developed a close relationship with God. He would pray over my body every single night. It became unsettling, and Child Protective Services was involved. He eventually moved out right after I turned 11. I chose to be an atheist because of the trauma inflicted by my father. I now associate God with him. I see a gray Toyota Corolla and have a panic attack. I see a Jimmy Buffett t-shirt and feel the urge to run. Sometimes, I still smell the stench he produced, a mix of marijuana, beer, and Pepto-Bismol. It was disgusting, scarring, and terrifying. Not only that, we weren't wealthy at all. My passion since childhood was to be a professional dancer, and I'm still working to achieve that, but it wasn't easy. When I was 2, I joined dance. When I was 9, I joined the competition team, and when I was 12, I had to quit dance altogether for financial reasons. Dance was, and still is, what brings me joy. I love it so much. I remember the year I took off. I spent it wishing I was dead, self-harming, and crying too many times. I told my friends I was still in dance, and that lie kept me alive. I convinced myself I was still dancing so I didn't die. The divorce between my parents only made it worse. I hated myself, my life, and everything else. I was enrolled in 2 classes the following year, then 4, then 8, until I was 15 when I returned to the company. The only way we could afford that was after I worked 3 summers at my uncle's restaurant and did about 9 to 10 acting jobs to ensure we could still keep the house. I wish I hadn't gone through that. Maybe it shaped who I am today, but the vivid memories, the trauma, the dreams, everything, make it too hard to look back and not wish my life had been different. I love my mother, my sister, and my brothers, but if I could have had a wealthier family, a loving father, or open, happy siblings, I would take it. Story 75. Yes, as long as they are not abusive and actively seek help for their health issues and similar concerns. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.